Happy New Year, and Happy New Year. I'm back with another book review, this time of Michael Eric Dyson's Know What I Mean, Reflections in Hip Hop, or Reflections on Hip Hop, a work published by Dyson in 2007. I have the hard copy that I've been reading, or the hardcover copy that I've been reading, which you can find online or in bookstores for about $15 to $20. It's about 200 pages cover to cover and includes an intro by Jay Z, a prelude, about 5 chapters, an index, and about the author section. Now, one of the reasons this book includes an index, I assume, is because it's probably used or read by students of hip hop and those who study the art form professionally. It's definitely written by a professional and intellectual. Now, in the introduction, we read Jay Z applauding Michael Eric Dyson as an educated man, a man who's used education to rise above his disadvantages, but also he applauds Dyson as an educator of hip hop, of the African American culture, and um, and thanks Dyson for what he's given to hip hop and its artists, which is quote unquote respect and a better way to understand ourselves. Now, in the prelude, Dyson sets the stage for why a work like Know What I Mean is necessary uh, because of critics of hip hop as an art form, for critics of the African American culture, whether they be a part of the culture or not a part of the culture. Dyson is sets the stage for why this argument in favor of hip hop is necessary through Know What I Mean. Um, Dyson acknowledges hip hop as a newfound institution in the African American culture, whereas many critics and many African Americans themselves have looked to the Black church and its leaders during the civil rights time as the dominant institution for African American expression. Michael Eric Dyson is defending hip hop as an emerging institution as well. Also noting that it's not without problematic expression or perspectives, but that it has grown to hold its own. Um, Dyson also notes in the prelude that or not notes, but acknowledges that some of the problematic expressions, which came in the original barbershop film as a comedic dishonoring of Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and acknowledges a critic of that moment um, who who says that Michael Eric Dyson himself is a part of a mindless hip hop culture that discredits what the civil rights has done for the African American culture. Dyson specifically says toward the end of the prelude, his attempt in publishing this work, and I'll read it, quote unquote, my attempt to wrestle with the creative cultural expressions of often degraded Black youth that have garnered them international acclaim. It is also my effort to pursue several other ends to probe the vexed gender relations and sexual politics that have made rap music a lightning rod for wags and pundits, to explore the commercial explosion of an art form that has made it vulnerable to contradiction and a victim of its own success, and to examine the political elements that have been submerged in the most popular form of hip hop while creating a vibrant underground, and to intellectually engage with some of hip hop's most influential figures. Dyson went on to write, I also aim to match hip hop's verbal acrobatics and linguistic innovation with knowledge of the culture in the form of the long interview, which I have sought to remake as the intellectual's version of hip hop lyrical invention. And what this means is each chapter, as opposed to being referred to as a chapter, is referred to as a track, as if it is published along with a CD. And the chapters open up with credits to the interviewer, um, the interviewer's credits, and samples, shout outs, and head nods that give the reader insights to some of the notable individuals, concepts, and etc. that Dyson refers to throughout the chapter to make his points. And chapter one is titled How Real Is This? And it discusses the authenticity of hip hop as an art form, as a perspective of the African American culture, and its appropriateness to expressing how the culture feels or thinks at the time. Dyson notes that one aspect of the authenticity is the interpretation of hip hop or hip hop artists' lyrics, and all that goes along with that. How the lifestyle of hip hop artists, and how it may or may not reflect the lifestyle of the average African American. And despite that debate, hip hop artists or hip hoppers are heavily invested in the authenticity debate surrounding hip hop. And from another perspective, Dyson notes that there are multiple streams of the authenticity debate going on at the same time. One being the rift between underground hip hop and commercial rap, and another stream being the divide between the ghetto centric Black culture and the more bougie Negro expression that you find in other types of music like jazz or bebop, or the original folk expression of Black expression. Um, in general, I saw it as the historical debate of, does the life imitate art, or does art imitate life? That's been a debate surrounding all types of art forms. And for those who see hip hop and um, for those who see hip hop as a valid art form or expression of Black culture, you'll understand that that debate weighs heavy surrounding hip hop. Um, Track one or chapter one also, um, we also read Dyson's perspective on incarceration in the African American community, another huge debate in the African American community and rift between Black families and law. Um, and Dyson points out that unfair imprisonment as one thing, but the general plight of the Black man into the prison industrial complex as another thing. And what the reader reads from Dyson unfolds as a concept of home that, when you talk about the Black man and the prison system, the greater debate is the concept of home for African Americans in general. And Dyson goes on to discuss, at the questioning of the interviewer, that as far as hip hop is concerned, technology has been a home for hip hop, and hip hop has evolved along with technology from the tape to the CD to the iPod to internet streams. Um, Hip hop has made a home for itself within technology. Um, Dyson, like he says in the prelude, also looks into the sexual and gender politics of hip hop, and notes it as a real issue within hip hop on many levels, not just in lyrics, but on the executive level, where women are said or not expected to give up their sexual autonomy to into the hands of the this male dominated industry, which is hip hop, and how some female artists have fought lyrically to regain that control and level that playing field. And Dyson, in his fandom, explains that what hip hop artists do with their lyrics and rhetoric and hyperboles and metaphors is nothing short of amazing. And explains all of that to be the magic of artists, their imagination, and just what they do is within the profession is remarkable. So that's track one, debating the authenticity of hip hop, and is quite a bit that goes into it. But you have to and read for more and personal understanding. Now, chapter two or track two continues with the same interviewer from track one, and sorry, is titled "This Dark Diction Has Become America's Addiction." And what chapter two is looking into, or with chapter two, we read Michael Eric Dyson's perspective on the magic of the artist within the profession. Um, Dyson notes that the language and the styles that hip hop artists use are on par with the most highly educated of individuals up to the doctorate level. And this is regardless of if their family or household members hold a higher education degree or if they do not. Artists have managed to use their words influentially and effectively. And that Dyson notes that hip hop's origins in general reflects the transatlantic navigation that the diaspora or Black identities have evolved from. Whether it be the islands or South America, hip hop's reach is just that far, but its origins are just that far as well. Um, Dyson also provides his perspective on the bling economy in track two, um, noting that Kanye's role in the diamond debate and with his song Diamonds from Sierra Leone or All Falls Down, where he knows himself as self conscious, but still very much in need of acceptance through looking like what the culture presents itself as. Kanye has taken accountability and has made a statement, according to Dyson. And then Dyson goes on to provide his perspective of corporatism in hip hop, where being accountable may cost you because you're accountable for those you are expressing for, which would be members of the African American community, whether it be children or adults, but you're accountable at the hands of executives and endorsements, and the reader, or we read Dyson's comparison of Jay-Z versus Bill Cosby, as far as corporatism is concerned, whereas Bill Cosby is heavily involved in the white man's corporate world. Jay-Z takes the risks to be accountable. Initially, I myself didn't understand the comparison of Jay-Z to Bill Cosby. It was almost like apples and oranges, because Bill Cosby fame came through being a comedian, and whereas Jay-Z is a hip hop artist. But the similarity that I was able to draw between Jay-Z and Bill Cosby is that Jay-Z portrays the family man, like that is a real part of his life, and Bill Cosby is known to portray the family man through his show, The Cosby Show. So, though one aspect is through art, and the other is, I don't want to say real life, but the other is actuality. That is the similarity I was able to draw. However, Dyson didn't provide that perspective, or he didn't build on that point enough for me as the reader. And again, this is in track two. By then, I was into Dyson's perspective. I had got a handle on his voice as a writer, and me being the reader. And so I was I was left with a bit of a cliffhanger at that point, which was the conclusion of track two or chapter two. So that's part one of Know What I Mean by Michael Eric Dyson. This is part one of the book review. I've taken a month so far to read it, and part two will come within the next month. And hopefully, I'll be able to read or have concluded the book by then and bring you the rest of the book review. So until then, be well.